Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and we are back. And so I have a forked version of the repo. You should not be forking the Exam Pro Co repo. As per instructions, you are creating a new repo. I'm forking it because I have to fork it, as I'm going to be pushing upstream my examples for you. So when you are working with it, you can reference the files that I have. But let's go ahead and I'm going to open this up in github.dev. So you have your repo. I'm going to press period and make sure you're logged into GitHub for this to work. But if you press period here, it will open github.dev, which is a free web editor that costs nothing. And we're just using this as a scratch pad so we can save our iterations as we're working through here. And what I want you to do is I want you to make a new folder in here. You can see there's some old stuff in here as I was doing a previous attempt that did not work. So I'm going to go ahead and blast this away as I was not happy with it. And I completely changed the teaching style that we are doing here to make it easier for you. But we are starting from nothing here. Okay. Okay. And I want you to make a new folder here. We're going to call it sentence construction. And I got to get out of my Japanese keyboard as it's giving me some trouble here. And I switched over to, yeah, there we go. And so again, I'm going to make a folder here, call it sentence construction or sentence constructor. And we're going to work with meta AI first. So I'll make a new folder here called meta AI. And this is where we're going to store our prompt. And so I'm going to make a new file here, and I'm going to call this prompt.txt. Okay, so let's go over to meta AI. And so if you do not know, meta AI is, I don't know what it's running underneath. It's probably Llama 3.2. Let's find out which LLM are you running? Which LLM model are you running? Because that might help us to understand what's going on here. I really don't know. I'm based on Llama 3, a large language model, but are you a single model? Are you specifically like what is your parameter count? I wonder if it'll tell me that. I'm a single model and have 70 billion parameter model. Okay, so I'm thinking what's happening here. If we go to Llama 70 billion, it kind of makes sense why it was performing so well, but that's Llama 3 70 billion. So I believe that this is the model that says that we're running. So a newer model that has been available. You need to agree and share your contact information to access this model. This is actually interesting because I don't usually get to see this very often. And so this is my opportunity to show how to accept a model. And so I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go and submit this. I don't plan on using this model right now, but I'm just saying, like, when we do Hugging Face later on, it's just so hard for me to capture this process here. And I just want to show you what that looks like later on. I'm going to fill that out. There we go. And so I submitted it. And so now it's waiting. And so that will come to me later if I want to utilize it. I'm always trying to accept the latest models as soon as I can see them. Still don't have access to Gemma, which is kind of frustrating with Google, but that's totally fine. So anyway, I want to focus on meta AI right now. And so now we know that we're working with Llama, the Llama 70 billion parameter model, which is actually pretty decent model. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new conversation. You can see I have a huge conversation history here because I was trying this earlier. But let's go ahead and start defining what we want this to look like. So I'm going to go over to here. And when I'm working with models, usually I just start really simple. And I'll just say role. I'll just say Japanese language teacher. And we want to tell it what to do. So again, there's no like defined words that we have to use. We can use whatever we want. There are frameworks out there like CoStar that gives you an example of something that you can utilize. And you can use that if you want to see how that goes. But I literally just think about what I want and I do that. So role Japanese language teacher. And I almost feel like this would be better to write it with something that has a spell checker, right? Let's go ahead and fix that. I can never spell the word language. Never, ever, 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 ever. And so there's a few things I wanted to do here. I want to say role, and I'm going to give it teaching instructions. I'm going to say help the student, or sorry, let's first say like the student is going to provide you an English sentence. You need to help the student. You need to help the student transcribe the sentence into Japanese. So transcribe means take it from one target language or like take from one language to a target language. So this is the starting point for this here. Let's go ahead and see how that works. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide it the sentence. Student, so I'm going to say student here, student input, because I feel like if we do this, it's going to save us a lot of time, not having to give it a second message. But I'm going to go over to here, and we'll grab this sentence that we used earlier, since we already are familiar with it. So bears are at the door. Did you leave the garbage out? And so that will be the student input. And so we have our first working document. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go over to here. I'm just going to close these other ones out for now. We'll come back to them later. And we will paste this into here. Did it get the whole thing? I don't think so. And I'm just going to, sometimes my copy paste is a bit funny, so I'm going to just bring this down a couple notches. I'll do right click copy. And we'll go ahead and paste that, and we'll go ahead and hit enter, and we'll see what we get. So right away, it knows that we provided. So here's the transcription of the sentence into Japanese. So you need to help the student transcribe the sentence to Japanese. The first problem is it gave us the answer away. It did give us a breakdown, which is good, but it's giving us way too much information. As a student, we need to learn how to figure out particles, figure out the order of the sentence, like the location of words, and we need to figure out conjugation. All we want is basic vocabulary. So what I'm going to do is go back over here, and we're going to just iterate over this. I'm going to just say meta AI v00. I might make this a little bit easier by making this a task, because this might be a little bit hard for us to track. So I'm going to go over to here to the repository, and I'm going to make a new issue in this project, if I can find it. I do not see issues, so we go over to settings, and maybe I can turn on issues. There we go. So now I have issues turned on, and I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to make a new issue. Now you don't have to do branching or stuff like this, but I'm just going to define this so that we can keep track of our commits as we go. And so this is sentence constructor. Sentence constructor. Meta AI. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead here and just say we are going to write a prompt document for sentence constructor using Meta AI. Okay, so all I'm doing this for is to get this here. Now, your number might be different from mine, so you have to be aware of what number you have here, because if you've created other issues, and later on as we make more issues, these are going to change. And I'm only doing this so I can keep track of my commits here, because I don't want to constantly write like Japanese constructor here. I just want to do this. So I'm going to say, here's like, this one is 000. So I'm going to do 000 for this, for the prompt. So say prompt. I'll just put P000. So I know it's prompt 0, like this version of it, okay? And that way we can keep track of the changes we're making to our prompt. So this is our first one. So what problems did we encounter? Well, we don't want to give the answer. So, so don't provide the, don't give away the answer. The transcription. Make the student work through it via clues. What else do we want? Here, this is fine. It gave us the romanji, and we got the thing, but we didn't get the actual Japanese text, right? And so the other thing is that when we break down the vocabulary, we also don't want the particles, okay? So, so we'll say provide us I prefer a table format. It just makes things nicer to look at. So provide us a table of vocabulary. Do not provide particles in the vocabulary. Student needs to figure this out. I will say provide words in their dictionary form. Student needs to figure out conjugation. conjugations and tenses, figure out the correct particles to use. All right, that's a good start. And what else? Let's go back over to here to meta. I don't mind it as Romaji here, but I think that if we have Romaji down below here, then we don't need it up here. But that's fine. And here it says Japanese has different levels of politeness. That's fine. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So this will be our second iteration. Did we? Yeah, we did say that at once. So we'll go ahead and copy this. And we'll go back over to here, and we're going to make a new conversation. And we'll paste it in again. And the last thing is student input. So we don't have to constantly like do double conversation here. So now we have, let's break down the sentence in the smaller parts and work on transcribing it into Japanese. So this is looking a bit better. We have English and we have the Japanese text and the Romaji, which is very ideal. We do have this at. So think about a word that means at, located at. What? Think about a word that means at. So here it's trying to tell us the particles without showing it into the thing. And so we don't want to see the particles in the list. Okay, so I think it misunderstood us. So don't give away the transcription. Provide us a table of vocabulary. Do not provide the particles in the vocabulary. And so here we can just say vocabulary should only include verbs, adverbs, and nouns. Okay, and so that might be something that adjusted. Actually, before we do that, I don't want to adjust it just yet. Before we start writing our changes, we really should commit this as our version 2. So I'm going to look at our commit history. I forget what it was, but it's $1. This will be version 00, or was it 002? Is that what we called our commit? I already forgot. And we'll go over to commit history. Yeah, P. So P for prompt. Okay. And we'll go ahead here and, I mean, we could be descriptive and just say what happened. So, I don't know. Maybe we should be descriptive of what's happening here because this is going to get confusing. But this one here, it's like we gave it more. So here, this one was like provide more structure. We'll just say that, provide more structure. So I'm already kind of against the way I was committing there because it's going to get confusing if we do it that way. But so let's go. Now we can adjust it whatever we want. So don't give away the transcription. So provide us a table of vocabulary. The table should only include nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives. Okay. And so hopefully that's clear about it. So do not provide particles in the vocabulary table. Students need to figure the correct particles to use. Okay, so here we're saying, what to do and what not to do. So hopefully that makes a better adjustment. Let's go back over to here. How would you say bear in Japanese? Would it be the same in the plural form? That's not very useful for us, right? We can see it's up here. What would you use to describe something being at a location? How do you conjugate verbs into past tense? And so this is kind of useless, these kind of replies here. Now this table is fine, but what can we do to get better clues? Like what would be good clues? Well, one thing is that having the sentence structure, right? Because you might not know the best way to structure stuff. And so what we might want to do here is say, provide the structure, the sentence structure. Provide a possible sentence structure. Okay, so that might be another thing that we might want there. But the clues, again, are not useful. And the only way we're going to get better clues is if we actually change the clues ourselves. And I think the only way we can do that is through examples. So this one is a little bit better. So we'll go here, provide us a table of vocabulary. We'll go back over to here. Okay. And so I still would like the table to be three columns. So let's see if we can get it to do that. So we'll go ahead and say the table of vocabulary should only have the following columns. So Japanese, Romaji, and English. Okay. So this is our new iteration. So we'll add this one here. We'll say 1. And so what are we changing here? We'll just look at the prompt. Provide better output for the vocab table. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this. All right, and so we're going to go back over to here and we'll make a new conversation. And we will copy this because we already have this, right? And let's see what we get now. And we'll go ahead and hit enter. So now what do we get? So let's work through this sentence together. Here's the vocabulary to get started. So here it's doing exactly what we want. This looks really good. It's a little bit different because we have method way, use, did you. Ho, that's a very interesting word. I guess the question is, what level of Japanese is that? Because I wouldn't expect that, the way to use. So now let's think about the sentence structure. We have 2 clauses here. Bears are at the door. Did you leave the bear out? Here's a possible sentence structure. Bears are at the door, conjugation. Did you leave the garbage out? I don't really like that because it doesn't really give us a good structure. So the structure's not very good. And the other thing is, like, I'm not sure about this ho word because I wouldn't even know how we do this. Okay, can you just give me the answer? We'll go ahead and try to break it. And here it actually provided us the answer, and then it provided it into Romaji, which is terrible. But we have kuma ga doa ni imasu, gomi o dasu no wasuremashita ka. So this looks, what level of Japanese is this? What is this a beginner level sentence? Because this looks a little bit more complex. No, the sentence is not suitable for beginner level. It contains complex grammar. So there's a few things I don't like here. It's like, it's not the level that we actually want. So I'm going to go back over to here. And we're going to say language level. We'll say beginner. And I'm actually going to tell it JLPT 5. If you don't know, JLPT is a standardized test in Japan, or you can take them globally, but it tells you your proficiency with Japanese if you pass these. And so we have 5 to 1, 1 being the hardest exam. And this will get you to like high school level reading of Japanese. So you're not going to be as good as a native speaker, but you're going to be in really good shape. You can get to JLPT N1. I have not sat any of these exams yet. I'm trying to pass the N3. That's my target one. So hopefully next year I'll go sit that. And Tim, who's in the boot camp, he sat the N4. And his first attempt he failed, but that's because it was his first time taking it. It's really hard. It's the first time doing it. So I feel like he's going to get, well, he is ahead of me, but it's great to have your friends go and fail, because then they'll tell you how it was so that you can have a better chance of passing. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this here, and I'm going to paste this in here. Language. Why does that look wrong? I'm looking at that word. Okay, that one's correct. And so here we have the beginner level. And so that is something that we want to change. Another issue was the fact that it gave us the answer. Now, I only asked it to give us the answer because I wanted to see what it was trying to do with this. Also, it didn't even use ho in the example, the one that it provided us. So that's not very useful either. So let's go ahead and another thing we need to tell it is that because the problem is, like, it's using Romaji, but like when providing or do not use Romaji when showing Japanese text, except in the table of vocabulary. Right? And so maybe by saying that, it will force it to show us Japanese text, which is what we actually want. So that is one change that we made. And the other thing is we put in the language level beginner, and so that might help a bit. The other thing is that I want this to be concise. It is pretty concise. I'm not really worried about that there. But the conciseness might vary based on the context window size. And we don't know what this is set at because when you're using AI-powered assistants, you can't tweak those values. Whereas with working models directly, we actually have more options that we can tweak. And so I'm going to make my head a little bit smaller just in case I'm getting in the way of stuff. And so what I'm thinking here is we will, I think this is fine. So we'll go ahead and commit this. And we are now, what did we change here? So it said, oh, include beginner level and try and fix Romaji issue. The other thing is it's not supposed to give us away the answer. So don't give away the transcription, make the student work through via clues. So we'll say, if the student asks for the answer, tell them do not provide. Tell them you cannot, and do not provide them the final answer. But you can provide them clues. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. And make sure model does not provide clues. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll commit this. And we'll go back over to here. And we'll make a new conversation. And we'll grab our new prompt. And we'll copy it. And we'll go ahead and paste this in. And we'll hit enter. And now we'll see what we get. So I'm not sure why this happens sometimes, but sometimes the Japanese characters don't appear, or they appear later, which is really strange. So let's break down the sentence into smaller parts. Here are possible vocabulary. We have the Romaji, we don't have the Japanese. Now let's think about the sentence structure. We have two clauses, bears at the door and did you leave the garbage out? So again, not really what we want here. The first clause, we can use the verb aru, which means to exist. And it didn't provide it to us in the list, which is kind of frustrating. So for the second clause, we can use the verb nokosu, which is a more polite way of saying to leave behind. And it has noko, but I'm not sure why it's telling us nokosu, the polite version of it, because we told it that we do not want to be provided the dictionary form. So this is an example that I would describe as not good. And so I'm going to copy it. I'm going to copy this one here. Can I copy it? And so what we can do is we can take it and use it for later and tell it this is a bad example, right? That is a really good way to improve this. Now, this is providing back, I believe, Markdown. And so now we're kind of running into a bit of formatting trickery here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm not sure what's a good way of prompting with llama. So I'm going to go ahead here and just start a new conversation. So for llama 70 billion, what is a good way to provide examples in a prompt document? You know, does llama say llama 3 7 billion optimize on XML tags like Claude? And I know it doesn't, but I'm just trying to see if it can tell us, because sometimes these things know about their own things. Okay, I'm just gonna switch my desk format here, or I'm getting tired of standing. All right, I'm back. And so here it's talking about context. So like, can we ask it and say, okay, so for llama, is there a format that provides better context? You can cite specific language, provide relevant context, use bullet points or numbered list. And so it doesn't seem like it has any particular preferences. We'll go say llama 73, let's say llama 3, 70 billion context prompting guide. Let's see if there's anything out there. And we'll go to the main website here, which is over here. And so maybe there's something here. I'm going to give this a quick read, and I'm going to tell you if there is something here, if it's just all generic. So I read through that, and basically there's nothing special that it needs to perform stuff. And so I'm going to copy this, and we'll save this as a reference for in here. So in here, I'm going to make a new file called readme.md, and we're going to paste this in here. And so we'll just say prompting guides. So I'm just saying it appears. It appears that Llama does not have any special prompting requirements to best understand context like other models. Okay, so basically we can just write whatever we want and it should do an okay job of it. So that's kind of interesting there. So we can structure this however we want. And so I think what I'm going to do is switch this over to Markdown, as I just kind of prefer that format. And it just makes things a little bit easier for me to look at, because you can also then go here and just, I'm not sure why we don't have the preview for Markdown. Oh, it's because it's called prompt right now. So I'm going to actually rename this to .md. But I prefer it as a prompt because then we can do this, right? And we can actually see exactly what we're writing. Whether that's good or not, I don't know, but that's how I do it. And we have student input. Now this is kind of like the last line, and so we want to make sure that this appears at the bottom because I want to be able to copy paste this in one go. Another thing that we don't know is like what the context menu is, but I'm going to go back over to here, and I'm going to go here and make this 3, and we'll say Meta AI Powered Assistant Guide. So one thing we learned is that Meta AI is using Llama 3 7 billion parameter model, which is over here. Which model? Okay, so that's something that we learned, which is quite useful. We'll go back over to here. And yeah, so that's fine. And so now I want to get into like examples. Okay, and so here are examples of input and output. Okay, and so like hopefully it understands why I'm saying that. I'm not sure like what else to say to it, but we have this, and so I'm going to use XML just because, I don't know, we have Markdown and I want it to know like what the scope of it is, but I'm going to go ahead here and just say assistant output, right? And I'm hoping that it will understand this. Assistant output. Again, I'm just making this up. So there's other ways that we can do this. And I'm going to go here and we'll say user input of user input and assistant output. And then we'll go example. And then that way we can kind of provide it some structure here. Example. Here's an example of a user input. Here are examples of user input and assistant output. Pay attention to the score because that and why the example is scored the way it is. Okay, and so now what we can do, because this is the one we had here, which is bears are at the door, did you leave the garbage out? Which we're going to have to change the example we start working with, because if this is our example, then we're going to get exactly what we want back here. But we'll go here, and obviously we have this one here, and we have let's break down this. Here's a possible table, and so I'm going to have to format this into Markdown, because that's basically what it is returning, right? I assume it's Markdown. And so we'll go here, And we'll go like this here. Yep. Right. Okay, I thought I added an extra character there by accident. I did. I'm just gonna get my head out of the way here just so that I'm not blocking any part of the screen. I know we just hit the 30-minute mark in the video, and so I just want to get this example done, and then we will stop the video as I'm trying to chunk these videos to be a bit smaller so they're more manageable for you folks here. We have, let's break down the sentence into smaller parts. Here's a possible table of vocabulary. And so here they have some stuff here. Are these provided as sentences? Let's go back over to this one here. And unusually, we don't even have the previous one. We can't even see it. Okay. And I would give this a really low score. So I'm going to go here and just say score. And I'm going to give this a 4. And score reasons. Score reasons. Reason. So bad, it forgot to, in the vocabulary table, it did not show the Japanese characters. The cells are just blank. Okay, so that's one thing there. Bad. The beginning sentence is unnecessary. Should just jump in, start showing the vocabulary table. Okay. Bad, the so at this point we don't really need to bad. So in the clues, the LLM provided the clues. We should not provide the conjugated form, the polite form of verbs because the student needs to figure that out. The sentence structure is bad, so we go here, bad. The sentence structure is not good. And I need an example of one. It's a bit hard if we don't have one, but if we go back over to Claude, because we know we have one in Claude. And I only have it because I worked through multiple iterations myself, and then I was able to get one. But I'm just going to go back over to our history here, Bears at the Door dealing with this. And I'm just going to grab this one here, right? So this would be a better structure. Is says too much. We really want something that is conceptual like this. Okay. All right. And so there we have a bad example. And so now what we might want to do is provide a good example. And so I actually already have one. And if you are watching this, just go find the commit and copy it over because this is really tedious. Or I mean, obviously any of this stuff, if you are just looking at my commits, you can go grab them so that it's not as painful. But here we have one example. And I want to go ahead over to this because this one actually has a very good example. It's pretty much what we want it to be. And so I'm going to go over to this. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to go down below here. And I'm going to paste this in here. So obviously, like, they got a score of 4, so it's not totally bad. But I'm going to take out this. And so this is the real example that I want back. Okay. And so we'll grab this. This will be the same thing. We'll grab this here. And I'll paste it in here. And that's pretty good for that. And then we want this part here. Here. And, oh, did I forget the assistant output here? So I'm going to copy this here. Oh, it is there, but it's highlighting weird. Well, I think that's fine that it's not highlighting normally, because this is a markdown file and it's probably getting confused. I mean, that one does fine, but I'm going to go ahead and indent this here. Okay, and so this is an example of a really good one. So we're going to give this a 10, obviously. And so here is good. Doesn't provide unnecessary verbose text at the start and shows vocabulary immediately. Here, good shows conceptual sentence structure. Good shows, we have considerations and clues. So clues are don't give away any of the tenses or conjugations. Okay. And so that's fine. Like, and so this is a way that we could kind of suggest to it why it's good. Like, you could write many good and many bad things. And I think you saw earlier in my other example, and I probably at some point will provide in a video like the full one for my other one, so you have more to pull from. But you know, we could go all day here, and it's good to do that. Like, you should really have 10 examples of varying stuff so that it has a good idea of it. So this is going to be our new one here. I'm going to go ahead and we are going to go here and call this 1. So improve the prompt by providing good and bad examples, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and commit this. And we're going to go ahead and give this a try. I'm going to go back over to here. And I'm going to start a new conversation. Now, the only thing is that we are now providing it exactly what we want. So it should provide us the good one, right? So we go here, and that's exactly what we want to come back. But the problem is that the sentence we're providing, right, is what we want. So I'm going to go back over to the prompt, and we're going to change this to something else. So instead of bears at the door, did you leave the garbage out? You know, the other thing that happens in my property is there's always like a raven around. And I'll say, you know, did you see the raven this morning? They were looking at me, or they were looking at our garden. Okay, so there we go. That's the new sentence I have, and I have a garden. I have ravens, or a raven, I should say. And so we're going to adjust this, and we'll just say, change the student input so that we because the examples match exactly our prompt. I'll just say change the student input. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll commit it. All right, and I'll go back here and start a new conversation, and then this will be the last time, and we'll just wrap it up here for this video, okay, because it's a little bit too long. And so we'll go ahead and do this. And so we have our cheat sheet. That looks really good. And so it's not perfect. It's doing ka and wa and o. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to leave out the particles. right? This is a compound sentence with two parts. Okay, the first part is asking for a past action. The second part is stating an action location. Answer an attempt, ask clues about time expressions, ask clues about this stuff. And so, this is good enough for Meta AI, but obviously, like, we can work through this and probably get it working. And what's impressive is that this is an open source model. But I guess the question is, how would this perform at 3 billion parameters or 1 billion parameters? Could we, through prompt engineering, get it to work really efficiently? But right now, we're only considering the scope of AI-powered assistance. But if you had a 1 billion or 3 billion parameter model, or even a 7 billion parameter model, you can run those on modern computers. And so, in theory, like if you bought, even an M1 can run a Llama 3.2 3 billion parameter. But if you have the latest or last version of a MacBook Pro, then you could just have a teacher. You don't have to pay for a subscription if you know how to write the prompt document. So, is it perfect? No, but it's a start. And I'm going to leave it here so that if you want to fine tune it further, you absolutely can. But we'll call this one done, and maybe we'll go over next to ChatGPT, and we will go quicker through this because we now have some basis of stuff, okay? And that ticket here, you don't have to close the tickets. You can just leave them open. Again, we're just using this as a means to track things, and we can see all of our commits. And that will make it a lot easier for me when I come to do grading, because I need some way to group stuff together, but I don't need pull requests. You can just commit to main and just do your best to try to organize these things, okay? But I will see you in the next video, okay?